The stale scent of refuse and damp concrete clung to the narrow alleyway. 5-year-old Chenchen's small body thrashed, his sneakers scuffing uselessly against the grimy ground as the burly men dragged him toward a waiting van. His cries were thin and desperate, swallowed by the city's indifferent hum. "Let me go, Mummy." His tear-filled eyes darted around, landing on a lone figure huddled near a pile of discarded cardboard. The man was a study in neglect, his clothes torn and smudged with dirt, his matted hair obscuring most of his face. To anyone else, he was invisible. To a terrified child, he was the only hope. "Beggar uncle, save me," Chenchin shrieked, his voice cracking with a final, desperate plea. The figure stirred. He rose not with the shuffling weariness of the downtrodden, but with a startling, cold stillness. Gouting lifted his head, and for a moment, the grind couldn't conceal the piercing intensity in his dark eyes. Without a word, he stepped forward. The kidnappers sneered. "Get lost, tramp, or you'll get hurt." The warning died in the first man's throat as Gouting moved. There was no wasted effort, just a fluid, brutal economy of motion. A swift strike to a wrist sent a wrench clattering to the pavement. An elbow connected with the jaw, the crack echoing sharply in a confined space. In less than 10 seconds, the two large men were groaning on the ground, and Gouting stood over them, not even breathing heavily. He looked down at his slightly dirtier knuckles with a detached curiosity. Chenchin stared, his small chest heaving. The fear in his eyes was replaced by pure, unadulterated awe. "Wow," he breathed. "You're like Superman." He scrambled forward and latched onto Gouting's tattered pant leg, his small voice trembling with urgency. "Superman, uncle. You have to save my mummy, too. She's being forced to marry a bad man." Gouting looked down at the child clinging to him. For a man accustomed to commanding boardrooms and crushing rivals, the feeling of a small, trusting hand on his leg was utterly foreign. An unfamiliar softness bloomed in his chest, a strange warmth that bypassed the icy discipline he had cultivated his entire life. He saw the fierce loyalty in the boy's eyes, a mirror of his own protective instincts, long dormant. A hint of a smile, the first in years, touched his lips. He gave a single, decisive nod. "All right, take me to her." The grand hall of the Sterling Hotel was a world away from the alley, a pristine bubble of opulence filled with the cloying perfume of lilac and the hushed whispers of the city's elite. On the altar, Su Luakshu stood in a resplendent white gown, a vision of bridal perfection. That her posture was rigid, her smile a fragile mass. Beside her, her fiancé, Gen, preened, his hand possessively on her arm, basking in the glory of acquiring not just a beautiful wife, but a valuable business alliance. "Do you, Su Luakshu, take this man?" the officiant began. The words hung in the air, a final sentence before her life was sealed. "Stop." The heavy oak doors burst open. A tiny figure, smudged with dirt but radiating righteous fury, stood silhouetted against the light. "Chenchin," Su Luakshu whispered, her heart seizing. Chenchin marched down the aisle, his small shoes echoing on the polished marble. He pointed a trembling finger at the groom. "Don't marry him, Mommy. He's a bad man. He paid those men to kidnap me." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Gen's face contorted, shifting from smug satisfaction to livid denial. "What is this nonsense? Security. Get this brat out of here." Su Luokshu's blood ran cold. She looked from her son's terrified, earnest face to Gen's panicked rage, and the final piece of a dreadful puzzle clicked into place. The threats, the pressure, his desperation to finalize the marriage, it all made sense. Her face hardened, the bridal softness vanishing, replaced by glacial fury. "Did you threaten my son, Gen?" "Don't be ridiculous." Gen's father, a portly man with a booming voice, stepped forward. "It's the wild fantasy of a child. Let's proceed with the wedding." As if on cue, a second figure appeared in the doorway. Gauting stood there, his beggar's attire shocking stain on the hall's immaculate canvas. He met Su Luoxiu's gaze from across the room, his expression unreadable. Scornful whispers erupted among the guests. Who is that filth? How did he get in? Ignoring them, Gauting's eyes remained locked on Su Luoxiu and the child now hiding behind her legs. Enough of this farce, Gen snarled, his composure shredding. He grabbed Su Luoxiu's arm, his fingers digging into the delicate lace. You are marrying me today, whether you like it or not. That was the final spar. Su Luoxiu wrenched her arm free, her voice ringing out, sharp and clear as shattered glass. This wedding is off. Her own father stared at her, aghast. Luoxiu, do you know what you're saying? Think of our family's reputation. I am thinking of my son. She shot back, her gaze sweeping past the sputtering rage of Gen and his father, past the shocked faces of the guests, and landing once more on the silent, shabby man at the back of the hall. He had saved her son. He had shown more honor in a filthy alley than any of these well-dressed vipers had shown in their entire lives. In a moment of audacious clarity, she knew what she had to do. Trusting a kind stranger was a far better gamble than marrying a known monster. Taking a deep breath, Su Luoxiu walked down the altar steps, her white train sweeping across the floor, and stopped directly in front of Gauting. The hall fell into a stunned, absolute silence. I don't know your name, she said, her voice steady and loud enough for everyone to hear. But you saved my son. You are braver and better than any man in this room. I trust you more than I trust the man I was about to marry. She extended her hand, her expression one of fierce, unshakable resolve. Will you marry me? The shock in the room was palpable, a physical force. Gauting stared at the hand she offered, then up at her defiant, courageous face. This woman, cornered and threatened, was not surrendering. She was launching a counterattack in the most unexpected way possible. That strange warmth in his chest intensified, spreading through him like a wildfire. He saw a fighter, a protector, a woman of incredible spirit. Slowly, deliberately, he reached out and took her hand. His calloused, grimy fingers wrapped around hers. I will, Gauting said, his voice a low, resonant baritone that held an unmistakable note of authority. The uproar was instantaneous. Gen screamed in impotent fury. Guests leapt to their feet, shouting in disbelief. Su Luoxiu's father's face turned purple with rage. He pointed a shaking finger at his daughter, his voice trembling with venom. If you walk out of here with that beggar, you are no longer my daughter. You will be disowned, and you will never receive a single cent from this family again. Su Luoxiu didn't flinch. Holding tightly to Gauting's hand, she turned her back on her father, on Gen, and on the life that had almost suffocated her, and walked toward the door and an unknown future. The air in their tiny, borrowed room was thick with the scent of instant noodles and stubborn optimism. Su Luoxiu, scrolling through rental listings on her cracked phone, suddenly beamed, her smile cutting through the gloom like a lone sunbeam. I found it, she announced, turning the phone to show Gauting and a curious gentian. It's a second-hand walk-up, a bit small, but the rent is next to nothing. We can have a real home. Gauting looked at the grainy photo of a drab, concrete building, and then at the fierce hope in his wife's eyes. He nodded gently. That's wonderful. Luoxiu, Chenchin, nestled against him, looked less convinced but was happy because his mother was. Excusing himself to get some fresher air, Gauting stepped into the narrow hallway, the pretense of his poverty clinging to him like a well-worn coat. He pulled out a sleek burner phone, his entire demeanor shifting as he dialed. The deferential slouch vanished, replaced by ramrod straight posture of command. It's me, he said, his voice a low timbre of authority that would have been unrecognizable to his new family. The Grand View villa in the eastern suburbs, transfer the ownership to Su Luakshu. Set the price at 99,000. He listened for a moment, his expression unreadable. No questions, just make it look like a foreclosure bargain. I want the keys ready in an hour. He hung up, the CEO disappearing as quickly as he had emerged, leaving only the quiet, unassuming man who walked back into the room. An hour later, a taxi navigated streets that grew progressively wider and greener, leaving the city's concrete heart behind for its opulent, tree-lined veins. Luakshu pressed her face against the window, her brow furrowed. Are you sure this is the right way? The ad said it was near the old industrial park. The driver just grunted, finally pulling to a stop before a set of magnificent wrought iron gates. Beyond them, a sprawling villa stood amidst a garden of sculpted hedges and blooming magnolias, its pristine white walls and gleaming glass facade looking more like a palace than a second-hand house. Luokshu's mouth went dry. Sir, there's been a mistake. This isn't it. Address is correct, miss, the driver said, pointing to the gilded number on the gatepost. Just then, Gouting arrived in a separate cab, his expression a mask of manufactured awe. Wow, he breathed, stepping out. The online photos really didn't do it justice. Luakshu turned on him, her mind reeling. Gouting, what is this? A house like this for 99,000. That's not a bargain. That's a hallucination. He offered a plausible shrug, his eyes earnest. The agents said the owner went bankrupt and fled overseas. The bank just wanted to liquidate it fast. We got lucky, Luakshu. Incredibly lucky. Though not a suspicion tightened in her gut. The sheer, impossible beauty of the place, and the ecstatic look on Chenchen's face began to dissolve her disbelief. She clutched the keys, a strange weight in her palm, and pushed the heavy gates open. Walking up the marble path, she felt an overwhelming sense of unreality, a joy so profound it was terrifying. This grand, beautiful house was theirs. This was their home. The next day, determined to prove she could stand on her own feet, Su Luakshu started her internship at the Longwon Group's flagship real estate office. She had picked up Chenchen from school, deciding to combine her training with a personal errand. She needed to officially register the villa, and seeing other properties would be good for her job. Holding her son's hand, she approached the polished main counter, feeling small and out of place in her simple dress amidst the sharp suits and designer heels. A saleswoman named Jo mined her with a practiced, dismissive glance, her smile as thin as a razor's edge. "Can I help you?" she asked, a tone suggesting Luakshu had wandered into the wrong store. "Yes, I'm a new intern here," Luakshu began politely. "I'm also interested in seeing some of the more affordable listings. Something perhaps under 100,000. Jo Min's smile turned into a smirk. She let out a short, derisive laugh and turned to her supervisor, a severe-looking woman nearby. "Did you hear that? 100,000. She must be looking for a parking space, not a house." The supervisor appraised Luakshu and Chenchen with cold disdain. "And with a child, too. Looking for a cheap love nest for you. And your sponsor. Are you?" The insult landed like a physical blow. Luokshu's face paled. "I don't know what you mean. My husband and I are just looking for a simple home." "Husband?" Jo Min scoffed, leaning over the counter. Her voice dripped with venom. "Let me guess. He's old, rich, and has a wife who doesn't know about you or your little illegitimate child." That was it. Chenchen, who had been hiding behind his mother's leg, shot forward, his small face flushed with fury. "My mother is not a mistress, and I'm not illegitimate." The supervisor's face contorted with anger. "You insolent brat," she snarled, reaching out and giving Chenchen a hard shove. The boy stumbled backward, losing his footing on the slick marble floor. His head connected with the sharp, unforgiving corner of a glass coffee table with a sickening crack. For a moment, there was silence then. A thin line of crimson began to snake down his temple. A strangled cry tore from Luoxu's throat. She lunged forward, scooping her son into her arms. The sight of his blood, bright against his pale skin, ignited a firestorm of pure, maternal rage within her. Her eyes, glittering with unge tears, locked onto the two women. "How dare you?" she whispered, her voice trembling with a chilling fury. "You will regret this." From across the street, inside a black, tinted sedan, Gouting watched the entire scene unfold. His knuckles were white where he gripped the leather steering wheel. The easygoing facade he wore for his family had vaporized, leaving behind the cold, predatory stillness of a man who held immense power. The light in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a glacial darkness. He had seen his son get hurt. He had seen his wife be humiliated. And there would be a reckoning. His chief assistant, already waiting in the passenger seat, saw the look on his face and felt a shiver of fear for the people inside that building. Gouting turned, his voice dangerously low. "It's time." Minutes later, the glass doors of the real estate office swished open. Gouting strode in, no longer the shabbily dressed man from the morning, but a figure of immense presence in a flawlessly tailored Italian suit. At his heels was his assistant, exuding an air of quiet efficiency and absolute loyalty. Jo Min and her supervisor barely gave him a second glance, too preoccupied with the commotion Luoxu was making. It was the assistant who brought the room to a halt. "Mr. Gouting," he announced, his voice cutting through the tension. Gouting's eyes were fixed on Shenchin, his gaze lingering on the makeshift bandage Luoxu was pressing to his head. He walked directly to her, ignoring everyone else, and gently tilted Shenchin's face to the light. Then, he turned to the supervisor, his voice as soft as falling snow and just as cold. "Did you touch my son?" The supervisor, emboldened by ignorance, sneered. "And who are you?" The real sugar daddy finally shows up. The assistant stepped forward. "This is Gouting," he stated, letting the name hang in the air. "Chairman of the Longwon Group." The blood drained from the faces of Jo Min and her supervisor, their world tilted on its axis. The beggar's wife they had been tormenting was the wife of the man who owned everything: the building, their jobs, their futures. "Fire them," Gouting commanded, his voice never rising above a conversational tone. "Blacklist them from the entire real estate industry in this city. Then, have them kneel and apologize to my wife and my son." He paused, his eyes like chips of ice. "They will stay on their knees until they are forgiven." What followed was a spectacle of groveling humiliation. The two women fell to their knees, their arrogance shattered, replaced by desperate, sobbing pleas for mercy. "Mrs. Gouting, we're so sorry. Young master, please forgive us. We were wrong." Luoxu stood frozen, holding her son tightly, her mind unable to bridge the gap between the humble man she had married and the terrifyingly powerful stranger standing before her. The assistant silently placed a file on a nearby table. "It was the deed for the Grandview Villa, Mrs. Gouting," he said respectfully. "If you would just sign here to finalize the purchase. The price is 99,000, as arranged." Her hand shaking, Luoxu signed her name. The ink a stark black against the white paper. Her gaze flickered back to Gouting. He met her eyes, and in their depths, she saw not a stranger, but a protector. A flicker of satisfaction passed between Gouting and his assistant, a silent confirmation that justice had been swiftly and unequivocally delivered. His family was safe. For now, that was all that mattered. The fluorescent lights of the Longwon Group's planning department hummed with a sterile indifference, a stark contrast to the warmth Su Luoxu carried in her hands. Inside the insulated bag was a 3-tiered bento box, filled with braised pork, stir-fried vegetables, and rice molded into little rabbit shapes for her son. Gouting and Shenchin were waiting for her by the intern cubicles, a small, quiet island in the bustling corporate ocean. Shenchin's face lit up, a beacon of pure joy. "Mommy," he whispered, tugging on Gauting's worn jacket. Su Luakshu smiled, her heart swelling. This was her world now. Simple, maybe, but whole. I brought lunch, she announced softly, setting the bag on her small desk. Just as she opened the first container, a sharp, nasal voice cut through the air. Well, if it isn't the charity case and her beggar husband, Jae-min, a senior planner with a venomous tongue and a penchant for designer handbags, sauntered over, flanked by two giggling colleagues. Her eyes scanned Gauting's simple clothes with theatrical disdain. Luakshu, I know you're desperate, but bringing your homeless project to a place like Longwon, it lowers the tone. The whispers started, ripples of ridicule spreading through the nearby cubicles. Su Luokshu's cheeks burned, but she straightened her spine. He's my husband, Jae-min, and this is my son. Jae-min scoffed, her gaze landing on the open bento box. Oh, how quaint. Are you feeding him from the company's scraps now? With a sudden, deliberate movement, she flicked her wrist, knocking the bento box from the desk. The containers clattered onto the polished floor, spilling rice and pork across the pristine white tiles. Chenchin let out a small gasp. As if the act of destruction wasn't enough, Jae-min planted the heel of her stiletto directly onto a piece of braised pork, grinding it into the floor. We don't allow poor people's food in here. It stinks up the place. Something inside Su Luakshu snapped. The humiliation, the blatant cruelty, the sight of her son's white, crestfallen eyes, it was too much. Pick it up, she said, her voice dangerously low. Jae-min laughed. Excuse me, I said, Su Luakshu repeated, stepping forward until she was inches from the other woman, her entire body trembling with controlled fury. Pick it up, and you will apologize to my husband and to my son. Before Jae-min could retort, Gauting moved. He didn't say a word, simply placing a calming hand on Su Luokshu's shoulder and stepping in front of her. He was still the man in the shabby coat, but the quiet deference in his posture was gone. His gaze, fixed on Jae-min, had turned to ice. It was a look of such profound coldness and authority that Jae-min involuntarily took a step back. Security, Jae-min shrieked, recovering her nerve. Get this vagrant out of here. He's threatening me. Two guards hurried over, hands reaching for their batons, but just as they closed in on Gauting, a crisp, commanding voice sliced through the tension. What is going on here? The chief assistant, a man whose presence usually signaled the arrival of the company's highest executives, stood at the aisle. His eyes swept the scene, the food on the floor, the crying child, the snarling intern, and then they landed on Gauting. The assistant's famously stoic expression dissolved. His eyes widened in recognition, then in panic. He froze the approaching guards with a sharp gesture. Sir, the assistant said, his voice laced with a deference that stunned the entire office into silence. He took a half-step forward and bowed his head slightly, a gesture of deep respect directed not at a manager, but at Gauting. Gauting gave a nearly imperceptible nod, his eyes never leaving Jae-min. The silent command was instantly understood. The chief assistant straightened up, his professional mask back in place. Now chillingly severe, he addressed Jae-min and her cowering supervisor. Your employment at Longwon Group is terminated, effective immediately. Your behavior towards a guest and an employee is unacceptable. Pack your things. Jae-min's jaw dropped. What? You count? On whose authority? On the authority of the man who owns this building and everything in it. The assistant replied, his voice flat and final. He then turned to Su Luakshu, his expression softening into one of profound apology. Miss Su, on behalf of the company, I'm deeply sorry for the distress this incident has caused your family. The character and grace you've displayed under duress are exactly what we value at Longwon. He paused, then added, Your supervisor's position is now vacant. It's yours, if you'll accept. Consider it a commendation for your husband's outstanding moral character. Su Luakshu stared, dumbfounded. She could only stammer. The air in the Gu family villa was thick with smug satisfaction. Ken, having regained his composure, sneered at Su Luakshu. Did you really think marrying a beggar would save you? He can't even afford a decent meal, let alone fight my family's influence. You're finished, Luakshu. And so is he. Gouting, who had been calmly observing the scene, pulled out his worn, slightly cracked phone. He turned away from the jeering family, his back creating a small shield of privacy. "Excuse me," he murmured, his voice low and steady. "I need to arrange a delivery." Ken's mother laughed, a shrill, grating sound. A delivery? Is he calling for a take-out box to pack up his shame? His thumb moved swiftly across the screen, tapping out a single terse message. As he pocketed the phone, the grand double doors of the villa were thrust open with such force they slammed against the interior walls. A man in a razor-sharp, custom-tailored suit strode in, flanked by two equally imposing figures. His aura was one of ruthless efficiency, his eyes sweeping the room before landing on Gouting with a deferential nod. "Mr. Lee," Gen's father stammered, recognizing the man as the formidable special assistant to the head of the Longwon group. Mr. Lee ignored him completely. His voice was cold, precise, and loud enough for everyone to hear. "As of 5 minutes ago, by order of our president, Longwon Group has officially terminated all existing and future cooperation with the Gen family's enterprises." The announcement fell like a guillotine. Gen's face went slack with disbelief. "Terminated? On what grounds? Our contract is solid." Mr. Lee's lips curved into a semblance of a smile, devoid of any warmth. "The grounds are irrelevant. Furthermore," he continued, his gaze flicking to his tablet, "Longwon Group has just completed the acquisition of Shengfeng Capital, your primary investment partner. As Shengfeng's new owners, our first order of business was to call in all outstanding loans. Your company's credit line is frozen, and its assets are now subject to seizure." He looked up, his expression clinical. "In short, Mr. Ken, you are bankrupt." The words hung in the air, monstrous and absolute. Ken's mother shrieked. His father stumbled backward into a chair, his face the color of ash. Ken himself simply stared, his mouth agape, his mind refusing to process the cataclysmic speed of his ruin. Then, his legs gave way. He crumpled to the floor, a puppet with its strings cut, the sound of his collapse echoing the fall of his entire world. Amidst the wreckage, Su Luokshu's gaze was fixed on one person, Gouting. He stood unchanged, a calm island in a sea of chaos. But she saw him differently now. The discreet phone call, the assistant's immediate and dramatic arrival, the complete financial annihilation of her tormentors, it all connected in a terrifying, brilliant flash. This man she had married out of a mix of gratitude and desperation was not a simple delivery driver. He was a mystery, a force of nature hidden in plain sight. Beside her, Chenchin looked up at his new father, his eyes wide with pure, undiluted awe. His dad wasn't just strong, he was magic. A week later, the tremors from Gen's downfall had subsided, but the mystery of Gouting remained. He was still the same gentle, unassuming man at home, yet Su Luakshu couldn't shake the feeling that she was living with a slumbering dragon. The reprieve, however, was short-lived. Her troubles simply shifted from her personal life to her professional one. A manager, a portly man named Mr. Liu with slick back hair and a predatory smile, cornered her by the office coffee machine. "Luakshu," he began, his tone using false sincerity, "we've landed a huge account. The client is none other than the new president of Shengfeng Capital, President Luan. He's requested a private work report tonight at the Yachting Club."